Okay, today I'm in Midland with trainer Micky Hammond. Thanks very much for agreeing to talk to us today, Micky. We'll go straight into something I've been told about you. You're known to have a good eye for a horse. Is that something that you've had to train yourself to do, or is it something that's been naturally sort of you found you've got a talent for?
Probably a bit of both, really, and also a fair slice of luck. But certain horses, either in the parade ring or in the sales ring, would be walking around and something catches your eye. But I like a fairly loose moving horse that walks loosely and also carries itself well and has a kind eye.
Okay, now would you generally go for horses in training sale, or would you take a gamble on something unraced, or does it depend on the price?
Both, really. We've been lucky with both types of horses, as most people have to be honest with you. Horse in training, so you have a bit of an idea what you're getting, but you're also looking for a reason why you might improve that horse. It could be a different training regime, it could be stepping up in distance or actually coming back in distance, or you could feel that the horse has been running too often on the wrong surface, or different riding tactics. So there's lots of different ways to look at proven horses of horses in training. As for horses that are untried, you like to go for certainly a horse that has a pedigree and also moves nicely on and off the lunge.
Okay, would where the horses come from be a big bearing on what you would buy?
I'm a great believer in going back to places where you've been lucky before, and I certainly wouldn't go back to somewhere where I've been unlucky the previous time.
I mean the origin of the horse. If it's come from a certain source, would that be of a bearing to you, from a certain trainer or from a certain breeder?
Yeah, we have been lucky from certain sources, and we like to keep going back because they actually know what we're looking for and what we want as well, which also helps the job. And then for them, the consignor, they want us to keep coming back, so they're looking to put the right individual in our direction.
Right, so would you have scoured the catalogue and looked through and thought, well, this, or would you do it the other way round and wait for something to catch your eye and then consult the catalogue, which would be your...
I generally have a look at the catalogue the night before or the day before and thumb right the way through it and mark off quite a number of horses, and then I go back through it again the morning of the sale and reduce the horses that I'd marked for various reasons, and then I would look at the individual, which again I would reduce the number of horses that we or might be interested in.
And do you have a maximum that you set yourself that you would pay, or does that depend on who you're getting it for?
Generally depending on who we're getting the horse for, but when you're buying on spec you need to be buying something that you would feel is value for money. Hopefully is by a commercial stallion that has some sort of a selling point, such as like on the flat, if you've got a shall we say yearling by or a 2-year-old by Sir Percy, for example. He was second in the Guineas and he won the Derby, so that's a real good strong selling point from a horse that we've actually been lucky with, Sir Percy's, and he's a good commercial stallion with horses that fetch sensible prices.
Okay, and being an ex-successful jockey, do you think that gives you a better understanding of what you're looking for when you're buying horses?
I think it can help, but whether it would give me an advantage over other people, I wouldn't necessarily say so.
And talking about your jockey past, did you enjoy that career?
Yeah, great. I enjoyed it whilst I did it. I've had my thrills and spills from being a national hunt jockey. It's something that I don't look back thinking, gosh, I wish I was still going. But sometimes when you watch the races live or on the TV and you see one of the lads have a crunching fall, you think, thank God that wasn't me, and I've been there before, I know what that feels like. But it was great. It's very much a young man's game, in as much you have a certain amount of mileage in you before it gets to a certain point where you've possibly had enough. But although saying it's a young man's game, you can't beat, once you've gone through the mill as a young man, you can't beat that bit of experience that you gain as a young man in the sport, really.
Yeah. Right, so moving to now, a successful trainer. Looking around Midland this morning, you got a couple of is it 2 yards in the village?
Yes, we've Oakwood and Sharp Hill.
Okay, so how many horses do you have in your care at the moment?
70.
And is that a target?
That's a nice number. We can take 45 at Oakwood and 25 at Sharp Hill. It's a number that works real well for us. We're always trying to improve the quality, but you can only work with the stock that you've got, and we like to try and get the very best out of every individual that we've got.
And do you set yourself mentally or publicly a target for winners for each season before it starts?
Interesting. The numbers of horses that we've got now, I think that on the flat we like to hit double figures. We've only a small flat team of around 15, 16 horses, generally cheaply bought purchases, and with a view to most of them in time making jumpers, whether they're at 3, 4, 5 years of age. On the jumping front, we like to hit 40 plus, and it's a good workable number and an achievable number. It's no good setting targets too high that are impossible to reach, but also you don't want to be kidding yourself and setting a target of 20 winners for the whole season, because we have a team of summer jumpers as well as a larger team of winter jumpers, that some horses, because we find out during the middle of the winter, are suited to better ground, end up going summer jumping, but also in the winter team, that is generally all the young horses that are coming through that may not even run in their first season in training.
You talked about summer jumping there. Are you a fan of it?
It's served us well over the last few years. I would be more of a traditionalist. I enjoyed it when I was a jockey, when we had the 9 weeks off. I thought that worked particularly well. Everybody could then concentrate on just solely flat racing. It gave the jump trainers and staff and jockeys a break. But now I think it's impossible to go back to something like that, because some of the race courses especially have geared themselves to summer jumping that works particularly well for them. But I do feel that it would be great if the jumping could have a 3-week break in the middle of the summer. And when I say the middle of the summer, it probably would have to incorporate some part of August or late July for the lads and lasses that have school kids on holiday.
Okay, yeah, and of course it gives the punters something to look forward to as well. Geez, everybody up for the
very
for the
much
new
so,
season.
very much so. Now I think during the summer everybody's looking at Royal Ascot and July meeting at Newmarket and Glorious Goodwood.
Yeah. So what would be the biggest challenge a trainer faces? And that's quite
I think really is sort of is keeping afloat really in the economic climate, in as much that wages are a lot higher than what they used to be, and I think that the racing staff who work really hard are far better rewarded now than back in my day, and things such as your feed and bedding, they're always creeping up. Prize money levels seem to be, if anything, just slipping down rather than holding their own. So it's trying to run a successful yard where you're regularly getting winners. You don't want a situation where, let's say, you have your 40 jumping winners, but you have 3 months where you have all your winners and then 9 months where you don't have any winners at all. So just nicely spread out works really well. But yeah, a successful yard with winners and keeping the owners and staff happy.
Okay, now being a dual purpose yard, is that, you'd have thought that would benefit you so you can tick over all year or be operating all year round, or does it have its own particular difficulties?
Well, obviously it makes the 24/7 job 365 days of the year, but I do like my flat racing, and although I'm not a fan of summer jumping, as I've said, we are successful at it, and it gets us a good start going into the winter. We usually have 10, 12 winners on the board come the end of September.
So, just hypothetically, if you had to choose, what code would you concentrate on? And did you ever think you might concentrate on one or the other eventually?
I've always been typecast really as a jump trainer. To be truthful, I'm probably better training jumpers, although we have had our successes, as you well know, on the flat. The flat racing, you have to be lucky to buy a cheap horse to get the horse in the winner's enclosure. I think a lot of people will tell you this, and as we know, money doesn't necessarily buy success either. But to buy a nice individual, a nice yearling that moves well, has a pedigree, and has a kind eye, you usually have to pay decent bucks for.